All right, Mr. Chairman, we are live and we have everyone.
Okay, so we can get started. I think everybody's here.
Not all the committee members, but I think we have a quorum.
We do.
Have a quorum. But we're gonna get started because the weather is bad, so we need to go right on. And we have a lot of things to do today on this. So I would call the Community Development Committee meeting to order. The time is now 12:08, and the first thing we ask invocation. Could someone want to volunteer to do invocation this morning, today?
A volunteer.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's bow our heads. Lord, we lift up our prayer requests as individuals. Thank you so much for Councilmember Mitchell's ultimate good news for their new birth and their family. I'm hoping that his granddaughter is safe and the whole family is rejoicing. We ask your protection for all those who have had to be out in the weather today. Thank you that it's not windier than it has been, and that people who are worried about flooding will be rescued and kept safe and dry. We ask your blessings and your wisdom on everything on our agenda today, as it is important, and we want to do our best to serve our community and to serve your will. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you.
I will also ask everyone to keep the Gregory family in your prayers also.
Absolutely.
Okay, public participation. Do we have anyone else on the public beside the people on the agenda?
No, sir.
Just a participant on the agenda. Okay, we'll move right along. I get the minutes was August 4th was deferred, so we go on down to new business. There's a presentation for Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation final report and recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, can I just tell you about Councilmember Saccharin is trying to get in, so he's going to call in on his regular line 9080.
Okay, thank you.
He was removed or something.
Councilmember Mitchell,
Yes.
there is also approval of minutes from May 27th on the agenda. Is that on your copy?
No, it's not.
It says deferred on mine.
Okay.
It's August 4th. It's August 4th, 2021 deferred.
All right. Thank you, sir. That might be a wrong one. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going into new business, which is Ms. Amber is going to do this.
Yep.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So for the final report of the Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation, that report was given a few weeks ago at the City Council meeting. I don't see the chat feature here, so I can't put a link to it for those who haven't seen it, but I will ask Velvet or Jennifer to send it out later on to those who haven't seen the report. The goal for the recommendations are to have them sent to the appropriate standing committees of council. Through discussions with Councilman Saccharin and Gregory, we have divided all of the recommendations. Specific to this committee, we thought it would be appropriate to send the recommendations from housing and economic empowerment. I'm not going to talk specifically about all of those recommendations today. Councilman Mitchell and I, as well as Councilman Saccharin and Gregory, will get together to talk about which recommendations to bring first and which ones are a priority for this group and how to get them on the agenda. I have pulled out the recommendations from housing and economic empowerment and put them in bullet form for the group. I won't read them one by one, but I will have them made available to all of you so that you can read through them in an easier form outside of those charts that we provided. I have gotten rid of the evaluation tools in the lead department, so you can just see the recommendations, the strategies and actions. Because I thought that might be easier for us going forward, for you to just be able to see those quickly. some of the recommendations from housing and economic empowerment, they're already being discussed and implemented, and they've already come before you. So I thought that was important to note. Also, we've had several local organizations and national organizations reach out to us to ask us how they could support these recommendations. So I think it was also important for us to know that this is not a lift that we're going to have to do by ourselves, but there are others who are willing to help support us through this process. So the next steps will be to continue to have these conversations with the various committees that are appropriate for the recommendations. The ordinance to create a permanent commission is up for a second reading at the next council meeting. So that will be up for reading, and then I can share, if I can share my screen, I can show you the bulleted recommendations for this committee specifically. So as you can see, I pulled them out of the charts so that you can read them. So housing, the first one, long-term goal to create new funding sources to support affordable housing. Made it easier for you to read quickly. And I'll share this out later on so you can have it going forward. So I can take any questions if there are any at this moment about the recommendations, knowing that we're going to come back at a later time.
Councilwoman Jackson? Yes, I can see it now.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Amber, for trying to make this as readable and workable as possible. I do appreciate that our Community Development Committee has, big responsibilities within the recommendations that were given to the whole commission and the council. And so on that basis, I'm just brainstorming. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other, but it occurred to me that maybe it would be helpful for our committee to form a working group, a subset of our committee, in order to maybe drill down in some of these things more in depth, and then be able to be, sort of like the resources for helping to prioritize or however we're going to take on the overall goals, strategies, and recommendations. I think that I do have an opinion that obviously the goals are very important for us to think, deeply about, and then be prepared to endorse, recommend, however we're going to use language that, our committee is behind the goals that were created, assuming that we will be. But when it comes to some of the recommendations and the more details of how we're going to accomplish the goals, I do think that's a lot of work, and it's very hard to do that kind of thoughtful brainstorming process on a formal meeting like this one. So that's my thought. We do that with some of the other groups that I'm part of that have specific areas of interest or expertise, and I think it works well to have these working groups sort of do a lot of work and then bring it forward.
Well, as she stated, I think she's going to send a copy of all the bullet points out to all the members. And once we get the bullet points, then we'll look at it so far as what we need to do from that point. Once the committee have read over it, everyone who's on the committee, get the bullet points, then we'll go from that point, and I'll see if we have to have a meeting or whatever to discuss how we should go forward with it and go from that point. I believe that would be the best thing to do. Once you have read over it, all the committee members with the bullet points, and then we'll know from that point if we have to have a separate committee or if we want to do something differently from that. I think that would be the best way to do it. So give you more, because we would need Ms. Gianna Johnson on that anyway to go through it. We didn't want to overload anyone. so far as another committee. So we would look at the bullet points first and see how we have to move forward with it. We'll probably pick one or two topics at a time, I guess. I wouldn't pick it all at one time, just pick certain one and then go forward with that and see how we can recommend that, because it's going to take a lot of money for some of these things, and which we don't have right now. So we'll look at it very seriously that way. So Amber, if you can just make sure that all the members of the committee get a copy of what you have done with the bullet points, just the bullet points, one is your recommendation, and then we'll go through that point, and then we'll see when they can have another meeting moving forward.
Not a problem. I'll provide the report, the charts themselves, the full charts with the full recommendations, and then the bullet points.
Good, that'll be fine.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mr. Mayor, you have any questions? Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So we're moving right along. Next on the agenda, my computer's going crazy, but that's all right. The second one, we have a discussion of the Cooper River Bridge redevelopment area phase 2 tax increment finance project. Ms. Johnson, you going to explain that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Councilmember Mitchell and members of the committee, Mayor, I will start the discussion, but a number of my colleagues will be a part of the discussion. We will provide via the skills and talents of Alan Davis, a PowerPoint presentation to you that will not last very long. But what we are representing to you in some cases, but there are also some new items on this list. What we are referring to is the Cooper River Bridge redevelopment area phase 2 tax increment finance projects. We are excited to present this as an opportunity to complete much of the work that we have started in the East Side community in particular. As many as you all know, because you've approved the various housing developments that are forthcoming on the East Side, a great deal of work and investment has been made in this community. We believe and think that as we look at these additional projects, this will enhance the livability of that community and make whole and bring completion to what we have committed to, we being the city, over the last several years, and certainly will prove complementary to all of the positive efforts that are being undertaken in regard to affordable housing that CD committee and council overall have made available. So we're really excited about what we're presenting to you today, the opportunity to be able to fulfill these obligations through TIF financing. And with that, I will ask Robert Summerfield if he has any additional comments. We sent out a subset of the projects to you late yesterday afternoon. That will be included with the PowerPoint presentation. We want to provide you a nice overview of what this all means in a comprehensive manner to and for this community. Robert, did you want to add anything to those comments?
Yes, ma'am, if I may. So good afternoon. It is now afternoon, that's right. Good afternoon, Mayor, members of the committee, Mr. Chairman. So I did want to stress one of the things that's important to note in this work is that there's a lot of projects here that are taking an incremental step towards some of those big picture items, particularly as it relates to stormwater. These projects are very integrated in their approach. They're not a one project, one solution type of thing. They're a project that hits on multiple areas of emphasis for the city. They're infrastructure improvements that increase mobility and transportation while at the same time addressing stormwater conveyance and storage needs that also improve access for affordable housing and other aspects. So I think it's really important to note that one, this project list, it's understood that this isn't the final expectation for the TIF, that there will be a round, I think this is 2, around 3, which will have some much bigger stormwater projects as we get the AECOM study and Mr. Fountain and his team can dig more into that and integrate. But each of these projects have been specifically included in this phase in this list because they do hit multiple targets for the city, multiple things of interest, and that every drop counts philosophy is vitally important. While they may not be those big things like a new drop shaft for, a new tunnel or what have you, every drop that we can store, move it off the street, move it off of these areas that are sensitive to flooding. Every new piece of green space that we can offer the community as a place for respite and outdoor enjoyment where they may not have a yard. Each of those things are important. They may seem small at this time, but they're vitally important to the overall plan. So I just think it's important to keep that in mind as we're going through these projects. Thank you, Gianna.
Thank you, Robert. Well said. And Mayor, if you or any of the council members have anything, if not, we'll ask Alan to bring up his presentation for your information.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes,
just reiterate what Gianna is sharing with us. This is kind of building upon what we started with the first bond issuance. And it seems to me, if you look broadly at what we're trying to do for this district, is to focus on affordable housing, a big commitment there. There was in the first bond issuance. That's the biggest percentage of this compilation here, because we know we have the great opportunity of working in concert with the Charleston Housing Authority in redeveloping a number of their properties here, and just to have our eyes open to help make that happen. I think the city's going to have to continue to play an even bigger role than we have in the past in partnership with the Housing Authority. Secondly is the drainage improvements, and I know that we're all still kind of waiting for this AECOM study to get more specific about some future project, but we already set aside a few million from the first issuance, and in every aspect that we're looking at here, we continue to focus on drainage improvements. Thirdly, park improvements. We've added Martin Park here on this round with some major improvements to that park. It's consistent with our master plan for parks and recreation. And of course, the beginning of the development of the low line here with a focus on mobility, sidewalks, and even the commitment here to the low line. The focus is to get it functioning as a mobility corridor for walking and bicycling. That transportation piece of it, I've always felt was one of the most important parts of it to get going. So anyway, with those broad parameters, I look for a list like this to be kind of a guideline for a future. Of course, any specific funding request will have to come back to council through Ways and Means Committee. But with your blessing, this kind of gives staff that broad objectives of where we're looking to focus on in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor, I alluded to that. This is something that we started in the beginning that we were going to work on the east side with the flooding and the housing and the mobility of the various parks. So this is only the phase. We are going to another phase, and we are trying to see how we can keep it moving instead of just dropping the ball and not doing anything at all. So it takes a little time and it takes money, but we are now coming and moving forward and trying to move forward with it and let the people know, let the community know that we have not forgotten about them and not forgotten about the community and things like that. So that's one thing they always feel, that we are leaving them alone. So we are bringing it back up now and trying to go forward a little. And it's going to be just a little walking at a time, but we'll get there. So
we're going to get there.
We'll get there. So we are moving back. Anyone have any questions? No questions? Okay.
Alan,
I think Alan Davis was going to add a little more insight.
Well, Councilman Waring, you want to ask a question before Davis go forward?
No, listen, are you all on Zoom? I'm on a conference call. Everybody on the conference call, or some of you all on Zoom?
We on Zoom. I'm on Zoom. We on Zoom.
I'm given a conference call number to tap into. Let me see. Yeah, let Mr. Davis go through and let me try to come in on Zoom.
Okay, good. All right.
Councilman, if you use that ID number that was on after the conference call number, if you throw that in Zoom, it should bring you to the Zoom meeting.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Alan, I have the presentation. I can share it and you can walk us through if that works for you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you, Robert. And while you're pulling that up and while Councilmember Waring is dialing back in, this presentation is really just an expanded version of the statements that Robert and Gianna have already made. It helps to build the case for the current list. It talks about an integrated project approach, and it provides us with some visual materials to point to talk about where these projects are, some of the surrounding elements and projects that we all already know about that are happening in the district, et cetera. So I'll just do a quick walkthrough and then we can resume the discussion about the project list. Next slide, please. So as we all know, and maybe everyone in the public doesn't know, the real premise for planning in this area has to do with the 1999 downtown plan and the general needs that have always existed in the district, but also a major infrastructural shift that occurred with the removal of the Grace and Pierman bridges. And here you can see those in the district in 1994, along what we call the Grace Bridge area or the Cooper River Bridge TIF district. Next slide. Here's a shot of the construction of the new Ravenel Bridge while the Grace and Pierman bridges were still in existence and had not yet been taken down in 2003. Next. And here's a shot where the new bridge has been opened up as we know it today, and the Grace and Pierman bridges are being demolished. You can actually begin to see the urban pattern that gets created. And if you all know the pattern of parcels and bridge pile caps that exist and all the other physical features of the Cooper River Bridge, Grace Bridge area, you'll actually be able to pinpoint some of the patterns of why things are shaped the way they are. Chiefly the linear park that we'll be talking about as part of this presentation. Next. And here we are, go back one more. And here we are today. This is a very recent map. And you can see in the foreground, kind of the lower part of the Grace Bridge area where the the Grace and Pierman bridges used to be. You can see that we've constructed, along with the Housing Authority, some affordable housing, Grace Homes. We all know about that. You can see the MLK pool structure that's been created as part of the last TIF allocation. And you can also see some of the area that remains to be developed as part of the planning that has gone on in this district for quite a while. Next. So again, many of you already know this. This is also just for anyone in the public who has not yet been involved with what a TIF is and how it's shaping the district and what we're doing here today. You can actually see that the shape of the TIF district is related to the likely development parcels that would occur as a result of the removal of the bridge, but also some of the other ones that we've seen develop since the bridge. There's a lot of language in the originating ordinance in 2007 that talks about what this TIF is intended to be for. And it's really for all of the problems that we are all trying to solve today. Things like affordable housing and connectivity and drainage and public space. It's really just the basic building blocks of the urban fabric that we need to re-knit the neighborhood. And we still have some work left to do on that front. Next. And this is just some language.
While you're doing that, I hate to interrupt, but I've been trying, the host won't let me in. It's just spinning and spinning and spinning. So. Okay, some progress. Thank you.
Councilmember Waring, I'll get to our clerk's office to make sure you can get in.
No, I'm in now. Thank you. I'm in.
Great, and I won't go through all this language. Many of you know about the ordinance already and what the TIF is intended to do. It's really about public improvement infrastructure, things that we can do to leverage private investment in the area, things like stormwater facilities, parks, and all the things that I've already mentioned. This is all spelled out in the original ordinance. Next. And I also wanted to point out the great work that we all point to on a regular basis of the Dutch Dialogues Charleston. The Dutch Dialogues focused specifically on the east side of Charleston and came up with some really great, what I call frameworks and sketch designs for what this place could be like if it were to better manage its water. And this is not only, as Robert was pointing to, large scale infrastructure projects that we all know that really work, but also the Dutch said that we need to manage every drop in our public spaces and places like that. So here's some images that are in the district. And here's what the Dutch have said. Streets and rights of ways are important. We need to retrofit some of our roadways to better handle stormwater infrastructure. Public parcels, including parks and schools, will play a role. It talks specifically about the the Low Line and UG Street as great opportunities to manage water. And also private property has a role, including the affordable housing that we'll be building. And it talks about redevelopment strategies. It affirms the visions that we've had for the district. So it basically says that we weren't wrong in our thinking and to keep going. It talks about specific recommendations for the district. We want to expose and celebrate waterways. We talk a lot about this when we talk about what I call phase 3 of the Grace Bridge area. We obviously need to coordinate drainage with the planned Army Corps perimeter protections, but also drainage needs to be coordinated with other improvement projects as well. And it talks a lot about pilot projects, programs, and partnerships. And we really can't do this work without really strong partnerships with our stakeholders and our development community in the district. Next. I'll skip this just to kind of let you know. I'll talk quickly about that. It's just all of this content is in the Dutch Dialogues report. So if you have questions about some of the things that I was mentioning, it's really all in there. They did a great job of looking at the district as a whole and how it can better manage water. Next. A while back, I believe it was last year, I presented this, what I call an urban design concept. It just talks about all of the housing opportunities, the infrastructure alignment opportunities, ways to manage water. And this has led us to make some really critical and really good decisions. For example, the work that we've done with the Humanities Foundation of Charleston to get land where it needs to be for development and water management. Next. And as Robert mentioned, our team has taken an integrated project approach. Projects have multiple benefits. They're not really easily categorized under this is a stormwater project, this is an affordable housing project. They're not so black and white, really. Really, they all have to do all things together. Our parks and streets can and must actually serve stormwater functions, including rain gardens and bioswales, actually using the street to manage water. Likewise, our affordable housing projects need green infrastructure. And we've done that already with the James Lewis Eastside Apartments, where we've used the adjacent linear park to manage water for the site itself. Many of you already know about that. And partnerships and physical improvements for phase 3. And when I talk about phase 3, I talk about the area between America Street and Morrison Drive that's composed of surface parking lots. That is going to be our next and probably most complicated area of the district for redevelopment and revitalization. Next. So here's a series of bonds. I'm happy to let anyone on the cross-sector collaboration team take over on some of the technicalities of this, specifically maybe Matt Froelich or Amy if she's on. We've all collaborated, as you know, to kind of bring you this list and to also think about the future. So, and we're also taking a look at the past, the most recent allocation and the great things that we've been able to do with the TIF district as part of that. And those weren't all drainage projects either. They really went to public infrastructure surrounding streets and sidewalks and some of the basic stuff that we still need to build in the district. But you'll see in our 2021 project list, and we'll expand on this in a bit, that we've thought about all of those things, but we're also thinking about the next bond. As you can see above, the TIF has a lot of life in it, and you all know that there's been a lot of development in the district, so we think that has more capacity to bond on some of these, especially with the results of the AECOM study, which is also called the Cooper-Jackson Drainage Study. Next. And here's the project list, and I'd actually like anyone on the team to help me present this. Again, you've already seen this. We can go through all of these. I'm happy to do that, or we're happy to call on any member of the team to help expand on these. So I'll take a break there and let others chime in. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. And I'll start, and the mayor mentioned the 5 million. I want the city committee of city council to know we are working closely with the housing authority and their RAD project, because again, we see that as an opportunity to enhance density in the community, working in concert with them. So we asked for 5 million. Actually, we asked for more, but 5 million is where we landed. But in addition to that, we have an RFP out now for a realtor to help us with identifying additional properties in this area and near the low line, simply because we know that some exist. I will say those few that have been identified are very costly, but we haven't given up on that. We want to use someone who is an expert in this area to help us quickly identify. And along with our efforts to work with the housing authority, we believe that we'll be able to enhance the affordable housing efforts that we have put forth and you all have supported today. So I just wanted to make you aware of those efforts that we are undertaking currently. And I will ask Jason, if he's on, to maybe speak to Martin Park and the other areas that are applicable to him and his team.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So next on the list is Martin Park. So back to what some of the others already referenced, that every drop counts. We looked at Martin Park and we realized that with the completion of the MLK pool, dome, and locker room renovations, that the park has a lot of opportunity for improvement. The first thing being the park house. The park house, when it was constructed, was great for its time. It's kind of outgrown its current size. It's one community room with very small office and storage rooms. And the goal here is to take that building, expand it, renovate it, and create some more usable spaces for the community. When we all walked through the park and we visited the staff there, and what the staff said, the recreation staff indicated to us, is they needed more room, they needed more flexibility in that space. So that would be kind of the next big project for Martin Park, if you would. And then a couple of other items is to incorporate a splash pad into the park, which is a small little fountain playground that the children of the area could use in the hot summer days. We think that some of those, while not cheap, but smaller improvements could really benefit the community. And then taking the whole green space into consideration for rain gardens, cisterns, and other stormwater features that again, slow that runoff from going into the stormwater systems in the streets. And then looking at Lee Street and America Street and figuring out how we can make the parking there more efficient. We can incorporate more street trees, curb extensions, the bioswales. Again, every drop counts, trying to intercept some of that water before it enters the system. And then as well as including the Lee Street linear park. And so the goal would be to do the plan for Lee Street and Martin, and then create those projects out of that plan. And then secondary to that would be the phase one of the low line that the mayor referenced. We know that based on the Kimley Horn cost estimation project that the Friends put together, that to get that pathway from Hugie Street to Mount Pleasant installed and utilized as this alternate transportation corridor, that cost estimate was about $2.24 million, with some adjacent stormwater improvements that haven't technically been identified, but waiting for that other plan from the stormwater department to identify those big moves. That's the Martin Park low line topics. Hugie Street phase one shortfall. As you know, back when some of the money was moved over to the Affordable Housing Fund, as we were going through that process, the DOT indicated that we needed to install more drainage systems into that Hugie Street streetscape, which created an additional cost that we had not anticipated originally. So there's a shortfall there of about $2.5 million to get that project through construction. And then, so those are kind of the three topics that I had most familiarity with. And then I'll kind of turn it over to the next staff member for the remaining items, unless there's any other questions from anyone.
So Councilmember Mitchell and members of the committee, I would also mention to you all the undergrounding the overhead utilities, which is really important for the district. It certainly complements what we're doing relative to the affordable housing, and having those underground versus overhead will prove beneficial to the long-term aesthetics of the community. So really excited about that. And then the Grace Bridge area phase 3, which is the what is being used currently as parking. That is another area for potential affordable housing. And again, working in concert with the Housing Authority, with our private sector partners, we believe we will come forward with an excellent plan, a massing study to look at what results can be garnered there relative to the amount of affordable housing, and certainly improving the Grace Bridge Street that we all know now rides terribly. It's like a roller coaster. And so again, those are all efforts undertaken that will again ensure a comprehensive approach to overall improvements in the community, and still hitting those goals that are vitally important to the city and to the community as a whole.
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. I would like to say this, these plans would really upgrade that area tremendously. We spoke about this way back since back in 97, I guess, 98, 99, about this particular area, what was going to happen when the bridge went down. And it was a big disaster, but all this happening when the bridge went down, and a lot of homes was lost. Beautiful single family homes was lost. And we know we couldn't put it back because DHEC mentioned that we couldn't put any single family homes back. So that's when I came up and said we couldn't put the single family homes back, but we could put housing back. And I said, we have to go with multifamily, that's what we have to do. And I pushed hard for that to make sure that we are putting housing back to replace and reknit the community back together, because the community was torn up. And I always mentioned that we had a lot of seniors that died because they didn't want to move, because that was their third time moving. So all this was a part of the factor, you know, of that, because they moved because of the Gilliard, they moved because of the September clock, then they had to move again now because of the bridge. And we had some that didn't want to do it, and they went away from here because of the fact they got just overwhelmed. So I'm happy to see that we are getting started with this again, because this is a long drawn out procedure, and I know how it takes a long time to get things done. But if we can start moving forward with some of these things, even Martin Park, and if you go to Martin Park is really obsolete at this time, even for kids to be in, to even be utilized. It's small. I go by there every day. It's small, and they can't even really utilize it to do what they need to do with the young people that's coming into Martin Park. Everybody have to crowd in one space. And if you want to separate them, you can't. You don't have a kitchen in there that you can do other things with. So, you know, we have to look at that very seriously. If you can't renovate it, even the park itself is separating. If you look at the building itself, I looked at it, some of the bricks they're separating. So maybe, I don't know, in the long run, it might be torn down and build a new one. It might be cheaper. I don't know yet, but we have walked through it, and I walked through it with the committee when we were out there, and I was noticing a lot of different things in there. And we spoke to a lot of the people who was working in the park and recreation. You know, what would you like to see in that particular park? But with all of the development that we have going on around there, with the housing going there, and you will have more people there. You're going to have the senior citizens coming there. Maybe you're going to have an area for senior citizens to come in, you know, to get out of the house sometime, and, you know, have a space for them to go to. But you have to have a better place, a better facility, if you may, for them to do that. So I think Councilman Waring, you had, I'm on you. I got you.
I did. Thank you. But obviously that background is important. First, I want to thank staff and everybody. This project list is certainly, you can see the work that has gone into it to be more diverse in spending the dollars. A couple of housekeeping questions. The RISE grant match. Can somebody explain the RISE grant to me? I'm not familiar with it.
I think it used to be called the Build Grant, council member. So it's similar to what we have for the Ashley River Bike Bridge. Right? It's just a new federal grant.
Yeah, Councilmember Waring, that's the grant that was approved by council at that special meeting, I think in July or the end of June.
That was the grant that the Friends of the Low Line put together for it, like Councilmember Jackson referenced. It's the new build grant. That's a federal grant, and I think it was a $25 million grant, and that $3 million match for those projects would serve as the match to those projects, if I understand it correctly.
Well, that again, providing we get the grant.
That's right.
Yeah, correct.
Oh, thank you. I think we need to put a footnote on that to include that.
Can I
Sure.
interject on that this would serve as a match, but it means that we would also proceed to make that pathway functional between Mount Pleasant and Hugie Street. As you know, we would make a city project out of that. Capital projects would probably take them a year to get going on it, I guess, with design and engineering and all like that. But we do want to go ahead and make that pathway functional. It would also, at the same time, if they're successful getting the grant, would serve as our match.
Okay, so you're saying that hypothetically we don't get the match. I hope we do, but I mean, if we don't get the match with this $3 million, we can accomplish what you just said. It'll be a usable path.
That's right. That phase one between Hugie and Mount Pleasant Street.
Okay, and Mount Pleasant Street is in the TIF. I know Hugie Street is, but is Mount Pleasant geographically in the TIF?
It's proximate to.
Yeah.
So forget that question. Next question. Proximate is good enough for me. I do think the drainage portion with the Cooper drainage piece needs to come through the Public Works Committee, so we can drill that out. One part on the next page, at least the page that I have on the next round of funding, seems like to me, yeah, the implementation of implement the recommendation of Cooper Jackson drainage basin study with specific projects. Well, those are action steps, you know. So I was hoping we can get the action step, and I don't need to discuss this now, but in this phase here, at least something to take some drainage away from those people that they kind of slosh through right now. But I really believe that aspect needs to come through the Public Works Committee prior to this going to just the drainage portion going forward to council.
Understood.
But other than that, I think this is a great layout. I appreciate you going back to the drawing board and coming back with some of the projects that really touch on a lot of needs, you know, over in that portion of town. So great work.
Thank you, Councilmember. And I will just reiterate, with all of these, we will bring them back individually to the specific committee once they're ready. We wanted city committee's approval of what we are presenting to you all today, so that then staff has the ability to move forward naturally with Amy Wharton and Matt Froehlich's support of this, or confirming the numbers here, so that action can then be taken accordingly.
Mr. Chairman.
Anything else?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Carol Jackson.
Ms. Jackson, Carol Jackson, come on.
Thank you. I have one question. So this bond would, if we say yes to it now and recommend it to the full council, then does the full council vote next week, or when would we, or does that have to happen? And when would the bond actually be sold? When would be advertising the bond issue?
Councilmember Jackson, this is Amy. I can talk to the bond side of this.
Okay,
So we're working with our financial advisor to, with all the updated numbers from the TIF district to see how much we might be able to borrow. And as soon as, I guess, this goes through council, we can work on getting the bond done as well. But we
Okay.
had always anticipated we do that, fall, September, October. So we have begun working on it anyway.
Great, that sounds great. And then I just want to add my voice in congratulations to everybody who has put this together. I was listening to our new planning director, and I think that rather than trying to it was like, well, don't shoot the messenger, because these are very small and they don't seem like anything is brand new and something to advertise in the Post and Courier. I take the opposite approach. I think the fact that we are working our plan, we are not changing our priorities. We knew what they were when the TIF was created. They've only gotten more compelling. So I think we're weaving together the tapestry that you all started in the late 90s, Chairman Mitchell, and we're just, being privileged as the current group of people to say yes to a second phase of funding to the great work that has been done. And now it really makes total sense. I think the fact that we can't really say how many are stormwater projects and how many are open space, amenities and mobility opportunities for people. I think that is great. We're creating a neighborhood. So I'm just really proud to be able to put this recommendation forward today.
thank you very much, Councilwoman Jackson. Anything else? Anyone else have any comments, suggestions? Councilman Sacrum, you have anything you want to say? No?
I'm good. Thank you, Councilman Mitchell. I know you like to keep your meetings short and sweet, so I will say
Okay.
I want to thank everyone for their hard work getting on the list, particularly the Low Country Low Line. I think that's a great use of funds, and we're going to get that work done already. So just want to thank everyone for getting that work done, and I'll just echo Carol's comments. As a new council member, I know a lot of this work was already done previous, but it's maybe nice to take some of the accolades as a new council member and go on the heels of your work, Councilman Mitchell. So thank you for getting it done. And I'm just happy to be humbled to be, kind of putting this work forward. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Appel? You have any comments?
I'm good for right now. Appreciate the presentation. We're making a lot of great things happen, and I look forward to talking about some of the recommendations in the race and equity report around housing and land use and economic, issues, things of that nature. We got a lot to talk about. Thanks.
All right. Okay, anybody else have any questions? We can move right along. We have one more. That's it. Under the old business, we have the Hope Center. Who's going to explain
Council
that?
member,
Yes.
and I'll defer to the clerk's office or to legal, but I believe we need approval of the recommendations going to council from this committee.
Okay.
I move for approval.
Second.
Okay, it was moving second. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Wait a minute, I'd like to have the caveat that the drainage.
You got a question? You got a question?
I do, discussion.
Okay.
I'd like to have the caveat that the drainage project go through the Public Works Committee.
I'll be happy to amend my motion to that extent, council member.
Thank you, Council Lady.
Okay, you have heard the amendment to the previous motion. Now, will you have any questions? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
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 Opposers? Okay, so that move on. So I got to, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Johnson, just make sure I have that down so I can remember that part.
Yes, sir.
Things be moving. Okay, now we go into our old business. Who's going to be explaining that? Ms. Johnson, you on that?
Sure. Mr. Singleton, Castell Singleton is with us today. They presented to the committee previously, and they are presenting an you today. And Cass, I will turn it over to you, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor, Chairman, other members of the city committee. Ms. Johnson, thank you all for an opportunity to talk again about this exciting project. Is Mr. Johnson on the line with us?
Yes, I saw him there.
Fred, are you with us?
His picture's out here.
Yes, I see his photo.
I'm with you. Yes.
Fred, can you share the presentation for the members today, please? And Chairman Mitchell will be brief. We sort of talked about this before and just wanted to, at this point, just give you an update and to request approval of an MOU for us to move forward. This is a great affordable housing project, a project that will serve the homeless community, as well as provide some affordable housing rental units. And with that, a creative portion to present some social services designed to help reduce homelessness. So it is a great undertaking, and we think an excellent project for the city of Charleston, and its partners in this case will be, of course, this will be a public-private activity, with Affordable Housing Holdings LLC being one of the partners, which is made up of Palmetto Community Action, our agency, and Pastors Inc. jointly. The idea is to try to create at least 50 units of housing at the Cunnington Street area, as we discussed before, and to also provide some services for homelessness. Approximately 7,000 square feet is what we're estimating. All of that is sort of subject to trying to make the numbers work and to see what will work there on the site. So we're projecting that we'll have a final mix of units, some at 30, 50, 60, and 80% of AMI. And of course, you all know the numbers is really what will tell the story. So what we're asking for today is an MOU for this partnership to move forward. And we will spend the dollars initially to do some additional due diligence that will be required in order for us to filter out all of these activities in terms of how many units we can actually get there and at what levels they will be. Along with programming and figuring out how to program the services for homelessness in the project. So what we're asking the committee for today is approval of the MOU to go forward. We will provide, again, the pre-development expenses initially, and we will work to pull together all of the financing that will be needed for the project. And then a development agreement, of course, will be done after that point. But this will allow us to be able to move forward to begin some of these activities. Once we have gone through this sort of pre-development phase, then we will come back to the city at some point, assuming with some additional kind of numbers in terms of what we think will work. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Fred, have you got any comments that we need to address?
No, sir. The only thing I would just add is just a reminder that we would go through the procurement process when we get through construction, and that the city will at all times be, 51% in control.
That's it. That's the presentation.
Yes, sir. We'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Commissioner, have any questions? Anyone? Ms. Jackson? Carol Jackson, I know you got a question.
Thank you. You know me well.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. I'm definitely interested in seeing this MOU come to be. I guess, and maybe we don't really need to know specifically, but we're going to be recommending to the council that the city sign with this new group, Affordable Housing Holdings LLC. So does the LLC have its own like board of directors or leadership team, or what is the sort of more corporate structure in terms of who's going to be responsible to uphold their 49% of this agreement?
Well, Palmetto Community Action Partnership is 51% owner of the LLC. And so we do have a board, and we will be responsible for making sure that this project is guided through.
So that literally is the day-to-day director leadership that, I mean, once it turns into a project, you're going to be.
We'll build a full development team to see the project through. We'll bring to the table whatever expertise we'll need. As many of you know, I've been a banker for some 42 years, and so I understand the numbers and understand what makes these projects work, and the financing side. We'll bring to the table the architectural and engineering expertise in this city, and we have a host of companies in this city, as you well know, that are excellent at this kind of work. And so we'll reach out to those expertise to get it done.
That's great. I mean, I think it's really good just to have that on the record that, you know, because this was the first time I had read the Affordable Housing Holdings LLC as an entity. And obviously we're putting great trust and, you know, finance capacity into a project that we're all excited to be, you know, seeing get to even this beginning. So I think it's really behooves us to have that on the record that we're dealing with a tried and true set of, you know, leaders and operations personnel. Thanks so much.
Councilman Waring?
Thanks, Mr. Singleton, for your presentation. I really respect your banking abilities over all the decades. One question I have is housekeeping. Have we closed on this site? Have we purchased the property?
No, sir, we haven't. We should be closing at the end of this month, the 1st of October. There are just a few more details, but we're close to completing all of those.
All right. Yeah. So one of the things I brought up when we first discussed it was, you know, making sure not any graves on that site. Have we did the sound?
Yes, we've already analyzed that. We have conducted a geotech. We've conducted the environmental review.
Great.
Literally, the last piece that we're waiting on to close on this is a recordable survey. We also had some preliminary assessments done relative to the stormwater management. And so quite a bit of due diligence has gone forward. And so, like I said, within the end of the month, we'll be ready to close.
Yeah, I just didn't want to run into some surprises. You get out there digging a foundation and run into caskets or something.
Yes, sir. And the mayor made sure we covered that as well. Yes, sir.
If you're familiar with the area, there's a lot of graveyards around there.
Yeah.
And then, Mr. Singleton, back to the cash flow. And I know you can pull the team together that you alluded to, but, you know, we've seen, you know, when I look at, 30, 60, when you look at the AMI incomes on this, 12 years from now or 15 years from now, when you have to replace HVAC units, or maybe, 15 years, do something with a roof. With that kind of cash flow, how are you going to have a capital account for those capital improvements down the road? I understand getting it built and all of that. I got all the confidence in the world that'll be done. With that cash flow, with that discounted cash flow, where's the capital account for improvements 15 years down the road? Where's that going to come?
What we will, as part of our due diligence, we'll have to structure a financing plan, perhaps with some LIHTC financing and other sources of financing that will bring the costs in terms of outlay, in terms of financing, repayment type financing down as low as we can. so that we will have the ability to create a reserve for future events. Of course, we can't predict what those will be, but we certainly can plan for them. And so that will be the ultimate goal for us. If we can't make the numbers work, then we'll say that. But we feel confident that we can. So we'll do everything we can and pull together as many different types of resources to make the plan work. And when we're there, we'll make this committee aware.
Okay. I guess one last question, trying to help out with that cash flow. Will this be tax exempt property? Will they have to pay property taxes? Because if you don't have to pay property taxes, that's more money that could go towards future capital expenses. I mean, does it make sense for the city to own the property, which keeps it from having to pay property taxes?
We should, with the LLC being controlled between the city and a nonprofit subsidiary, be able to qualify as exempt activity in a special purpose entity.
Well, I'm wondering, can we get that maybe answered through the auditor, Charleston County auditor, as we proceed with this project? The reason I say that, because depending on that ownership, you're right. I mean, property taxes on something like this will equate insuring the building, which is a major expense. If you can keep that cash flow, you'd be in a better position to continue maintaining this property throughout the decades. And I think that's something we can vet out now. It may adjust the ownership somewhat, but if we can eliminate that property tax piece, I know with humanities organization, that's one thing, that's a beast for them. They have to pay property taxes and insure the properties. So as we work through this one, I think we can get an answer on that now, such that if we have to adjust the ownership just for the property tax basis and improving the cash flow going forward, it'd be wise to do that now as opposed to get a building built and then have to come back and try to do it.
Thank you, Councilman, for that suggestion. The properties that we own currently our properties are tax exempt. So I think with the current structure, but we'll verify it. But with the current structure, I think that would be the case. But we will verify that.
Good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that suggestion.
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
It's the mayor.
Mr. Mayor, I have on mute. Mr. Mayor, go ahead. I tried to put my on mute with no noise.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank Cass and FA for this partnership. It's really important for serving our citizens who are most in need into the future. And if I may just elaborate on that vision statement, part of where all of this came from was the knowledge that our navigation center's days are numbered, because we are there just on the generosity of the landlord there, and we ought to do something special for him when we have to leave. But anyway, as this idea for a permanent home for the navigation center to assist those who are experiencing homelessness, I think the vision has gotten a little broader to include these partners that are mentioned in the presentation, but potentially others as well. And to let y'all know, I've had discussions with the United Way, who operates some social service centers in the Tri-County region. And the reason I mention that is because they're not dedicated solely to helping those in need who are experiencing homelessness, but to serving the population at large who are just in need, whether they're homeless or not. Maybe some working family who's having a little trouble paying their rent and needs to go to a kind of one-stop shopping center where they can find some resources to help them. And on the healthcare side as well, with MUSC and other partners. So I think the vision of this is really long-term, a little broader than just helping those who are experiencing homelessness. And I thought I would share that with you all, that we're going to have a little more room here. We're going to have a space for a number of nonprofits to partner with us who can serve our citizens. And I just view this as an incredible opportunity for years to come to be of service to our citizens in need. Now, one particular thing regarding development that I wanted to advise Cass and FA, that I was looking earlier this morning at the preliminary report on the drainage situation, and I guess this comes as a bit of a challenge for all of us as we partner and go forward with this. We're going to have to set the example on stormwater management for this property. I would like to see us have a green roof on the roof. We haven't done many of those in the city. Every bit of parking and sidewalk ought to be pervious so that we absorb water, because frankly, this property is I guess the soil characteristics don't absorb water as well as some others. And so we have some challenges here. So we got to maximize every drop that we can hold on site, either through plants or the roof, or soaking into the pavement, or any way that we can. And so just taking that a step further, I'd also love for this building to be an example of energy efficiency as well as the water efficiency. So that's maybe a different kind of topic, but I wanted to go ahead and make y'all aware that we're going to have to work extra hard to get our own stormwater department to approve the development plans on this site. It can be done, but we're going to have to really, and it may cost us a few extra bucks to make that happen, as often is the case. But I really want to see this be an example for great stormwater management and for energy management as well. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else have any questions, comments? But I like the idea of what's going to be built there if it's done. And it's still part of my community. It's still part of the community right now I'm representing, because I'm still in the same area. And I think that's what a lot of things going to be going up in that area, which is in the Upper Peninsula area, and that neck area, if they call it. So that's the only place we're going to have more land, if you may, property that we have to go to. So everything is going to be moving northward, forward. And that would be a great idea, to have these services there for the people who are in need, because we have to look out for them, because things are getting pretty tough again. I mean, pretty rough around here, but a lot of people, as even with families, that's having a lot of problems. I mean, I see it out there every day when I'm out in the streets. There's a lot of family having problems. They're trying their best to keep moving, but it's rough. It's rough. So we got to do whatever we can and say that we are trying to assist our community that we are representing. And that's all I want to say to that. So,
Councilmember Mitchell, I would simply add to the agreement that this partnership is put forth. Our legal team does have changes to that. So what you see will be changed slightly. It's not substantive, but Ms. Copeland has reviewed and wants to make changes to the agreement that we will read. And so we'll get the revised agreement out to you all.
So do we need to make a motion now, or wait till the revise? I'll make the motion with the changes. Yes,
sir. Your motion, if you could, would be with those changes that she's included in this document. And I sent it to Mr. Cass and F.A. Johnson, but we haven't had a discussion on that yet. But as I indicated, it's nothing substantive, but we do need to make sure we are clear with all of the legal requirements.
So move, Mr. Chairman, with the changes.
Okay. I hear a second.
Hey, I'll second.
Okay. It's moving second. that we approve the MOU with the changes that's going to be taking place and some minor changes. And any question? All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposes?
Aye.
Ayes have it. That's the last thing on the agenda, I believe.
See y'all later then.
Once again, Mr. Chairman,
That's it, Councilman.
handling of the meeting is a model of efficiency.
You know, I don't take too long if I can in the middle of the day, you know. So
Thank you, sir.
you don't have anything else, we can, the meeting is adjourned, the meeting is over with. That's it. It's all over.
Thank you, Councilman.